The Boston Celtics falling to the Milwaukee Bucks in their first seeding game back. It was good to have basketball back. Things were a little
Yes, it was.
sloppy for the Celtics. Not overall, a lot more positives than negatives, as Brad Stevens said after the game, but Jayson Tatum definitely on the negative end of the spectrum. I'm Sierra Goodwill here with Bobby Manning, Josue, Pavon, Jimmy Toscano. We've got the whole gang here tonight. Tatum, 2 for 18 from the floor and really 1 for 17 because one of those counted field goals was actually just the Milwaukee Bucks scoring an own basket that they credited to Tatum. So really he only made one field goal the entire night. How concerned are you with that performance?
I've been concerned because this happened in preseason too. You've seen him falling on drives, missing those spot ups. It looks like November Tatum, frankly, is what I said after the Phoenix game, and it continued tonight. Even worse, like I think of that 1 for 17 against the Knicks earlier in the year, and this was pretty much 2.0 of that.
I hate to be the sky is falling guy, but what the hell was that? No, I mean, listen, that was all-time top 3 worst performance for Tatum. I think we can all agree it was up there. You don't expect that going forward. But at the same time, my concern is that I also don't expect like top 5 NBA player Tatum that we saw right before everything was postponed. So you kind of need a really, 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 really good Tatum for the Celtics to compete with the Bucks and with some of these really good teams, the Raptors, you can say the Sixers, right? So they need a much, much better performance. Now, he's not going to drop 35 a game, but they got to get 20 out of him, right? I mean, they got to at least get that. You're assuming that you're assuming that Brown and Smart can step up their games, but you really need Tatum to be the leader that he is on this team. And he wasn't in game 1.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think one reason why I'm not too concerned, or I'm not really concerned at all, it's just because his mechanics looked right. They looked like he could get to the rim. He didn't look like he was rattled or fatigued. I mean, that would concern me more, especially when you think about how much time these guys missed, regardless of what we saw in the scrimmage. I mean, 3 scrimmages, it's hard to really gauge that because the minutes that these guys played. But with Tatum in particular, I feel like he just couldn't finish, especially those layups. I mean, how many times did he get to the rim with almost untouched and he just couldn't finish?
Right.
So that's just him not having his night, in my opinion.
Yeah,
That's what happened early in the season, though, and you saw the frustrations after.
Listen,
all that.
Bobby. I know it's true, but I don't know. I just think, again, the big stage against the Bucks. Giannis. I mean, Bobby, Jimmy, we talked about it before the game. The beginning of that game was so important for the Celtics to not fall behind, and they did the exact opposite by a mile.
Yeah.
I did think that Tatum didn't look as aggressive driving to the basket, not as decisive, which was issues we saw last season at some points for Tatum, like not fully committing to his decision and how he was going to score, but obviously the Celtics 2 all-stars, one was on a minutes restriction. Tatum had one of his worst nights of the season, hands down, and they were still within striking distance of the Bucks. So a lot of positives to take out. But I do want to bring up this one point quickly. I know I've talked to Jimmy about it in the past, that I think Tatum is one of the players in the league and definitely on the Celtics that most feeds off positive reinforcement. And when he doesn't get that positive reinforcement from himself, when the first couple of shots don't fall, and then he doesn't get it from fans because there are no fans and those virtual fans are just weird, then he's not going to perform well. And I think that's the concerning part for me, is this rolling over if he doesn't get some outside reinforcement to get him out of this slump.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, he does seem to be a little bit. I don't think he came into the league that way, but I think maybe like we've talked about, like you said, like he's sort of evolved into that type. So you really got to rely on your teammates in that situation. You got to let your teammates almost help you out of a slump. Shooters want to shoot their way out, and that's fine. And he took 18 shots, and he's not the type of player where you don't want him shooting the ball. You still want him to shoot it, but he's got to rely on his teammates to help him help himself a little bit, if that makes any sense. And he can't go too far down the rabbit hole of struggling, where he just becomes a complete liability by the time midway through the fourth quarter. If you have Kemba Walker, who's not 100% or not in the game like he was tonight, you need Jayson Tatum to be Jayson Tatum, or you're not going to win. And that's exactly what happened. If Jayson Tatum, Celtics probably win that game.
Yeah, I think that's when Brad Stevens steps in, though. Try to get him going early and often. Set him up. get these guys, going through plays that'll get Tatum in his flow, get him easy buckets. I think there's some truth to that, absolutely. And I also think that, if you look at Brad Stevens' approach, throughout tough games, the Bucks do a really good job of just controlling the pace and just destroying his game plan. I mean, we've seen it so many times. How many times, even when the Celtics, even when they come away with a victory, most of the time it's from behind. They always have to crawl out of it when it comes to the Bucks. And when it comes to controlling the pace, that really rattles Tatum. And I think that was the case against Milwaukee.
I'll throw this in there too. I mean, he's going through a tough situation personally now. He's talked about adjusting to the bubble, being away from his son. Jackie Mack said in 2019 when he was struggling that, getting adjusted to fatherhood, that kind of stuff weighed on him and had an impact on him. So maybe not necessarily the answer here, but it's one of many considerations.
Yeah, Brad Stevens summed it up best in the post-game interview. I was listening in while you guys were in your live post-game show. When asked about Tatum's struggles, he said, the least of our team's concerns is Tatum finding the net. That's right. What he does. He'll be just fine. So expecting Tatum to get things back on track in their second game on Sunday. We'll have you covered with all of our Celtics coverage on our website at clnsmedia.com and on our YouTube channel at Celtics All Access.